Right now, somewhere in your kitchen, there is something sweet. A banana, a cookie, a glass of juice, and some part of your brain is already thinking about it. You tell yourself it's a modern weakness, a lack of willpower, a flaw in your character. But the real answer is far stranger. That craving was built by your ancestors, one bite at a time, over millions of years. It is not a glitch, it is a memory. You have probably heard the story before. Ancient humans ate meat. Big, dramatic, mammoth-sized meat. Fire, spears, hunters dragging carcasses back to the cave. It makes a great movie scene, but it is mostly wrong. For most of human history, meat was rare, unreliable. Sometimes weeks would pass between a successful hunt. So what filled the gap? Plants, roots, insects, fruit when you could find it. Your ancestors were not action heroes. They were foragers, constantly scanning, constantly calculating. Is this worth the energy to dig up? Is this worth the risk of climbing for? The anthropologist Catherine Milton spent decades studying primate and early human diets, and her research pointed to something surprising. Early hominins were not defined by meat at all. They were defined by flexibility. Whatever the environment offered, they adapted to eat it. That flexibility is the real ancestral inheritance, not a specific menu, a survival strategy. Here is where it gets strange. Your body still runs that old survival strategy today, whether you asked for it or not. Think about sugar. Why does something sweet feel almost impossible to resist? It is not because you are weak. It is because for millions of years, sweetness meant something very specific. It meant ripe fruit. It meant safe, high-energy calories, available for a short window before they rotted or were eaten by something else. A brain that ignored sweetness starved. A brain that chased it survived long enough to pass on its genes. You are, quite literally, descended from the ones who couldn't resist the fruit tree. Fat worked the same way. In an unpredictable world, fat was stored energy insurance. A body that craved it and clung to it when food was scarce outlasted a body that didn't. Salt mattered too, because it was essential and not always easy to find. None of these cravings were mistakes. They were tools, precise, evolved tools for a world of scarcity. But here is the twist your ancestors never had to face. That world of scarcity is mostly gone. The tools stayed. The environment changed underneath them. This idea has a name in evolutionary science: mismatch. Your instincts were shaped for one world, and you are living in another. The physician S. Boyd Eaton, working alongside researchers studying what's often called the ancestral diet, argued that many modern health struggles come from exactly this gap. Not from anything broken in you, from a timing problem. Your biology hasn't caught up to your grocery store yet. Consider this for a moment. Have you ever stood in front of a vending machine, fully aware the chocolate bar won't actually solve anything, and reached for it anyway? That is not a failure of logic. That is 2 million years of programming responding exactly the way it was built to respond, in an environment it was never designed for. Now, here's something most people never learn in school. Cooking may be the single biggest reason you look the way you do. The primatologist Richard Wrangham proposed that the invention of cooking transformed human evolution itself. Cooked food is easier to digest. It delivers more usable energy for less chewing, less gut effort, less metabolic cost. Wrangham's research suggests that once ancestral humans started applying fire to food, their bodies changed in response. Smaller guts, bigger brains, more energy freed up for thinking instead of digesting. Pause on that for a second. The brain you are using right now to read this sentence, to question it, to feel curious about it, may exist in its current form partly because your ancestors figured out how to make a fire and throw a root into it. So if cooking rewired your biology and craving sweetness and fat kept your ancestors alive, why does eating feel so complicated today? Because the signals are the same, but the world sending them has completely changed. Your ancestors could not walk 20 feet and find sugar concentrated into a syrup engineered specifically to be more intensely sweet than any fruit nature ever produced. They could not find fat and salt combined in a package built by food scientists to be, in industry language, hyperpalatable. Your craving system was calibrated for scarcity. It was never calibrated for abundance. Nobody warned it this was coming. This is not a call to feel guilty. Guilt is not useful information. What is useful is understanding the mechanism. When you crave something sweet at 9 p.m., that is not a personal failing lighting up in your brain. That is an ancient survival algorithm, doing exactly its job in a world that no longer needs it to work that hard. There is another layer to this too, one that is easy to miss. Eating was never just about calories for your ancestors. It was social. Sharing food built alliances, trust, cooperation. Groups that ate together survived together. Some researchers studying hunter-gatherer societies, including the anthropologist Melvin Connor, have documented how deeply food sharing is woven into group survival strategies across cultures, even today. That is part of why eating alone can feel strange, and why a meal shared with someone else can feel like more than just food. Some part of you still registers it as a bonding ritual, not just fuel. So the next time you feel that pull towards something sweet, or notice how much better a meal tastes in good company, you are not observing a flaw. You are observing a very old, very successful piece of engineering, still running in real time inside you. None of this means the craving is always right for the world you live in now. Understanding where an instinct came from is not the same as obeying it blindly. Knowing that sugar cravings once meant survival doesn't mean every craving needs to be answered today. But there is something powerful in simply knowing the story behind the impulse. It turns a moment of self-judgment into a moment of recognition. Oh, that's not weakness, that's memory. Your ancestors never stood in a grocery store aisle. They never faced a menu with 40 options. They faced scarcity, uncertainty, and a landscape that demanded flexibility just to survive another season. And they answered that demand so well that the answer is still inside you, thousands of generations later, quietly steering your hand toward the fruit bowl, or the dessert case, or the second helping you didn't quite plan on. So the next time something sweet sits in your kitchen, and some part of you is already thinking about it, remember what that pull actually is. It is not a modern weakness. It is an ancient survival strategy, still working perfectly, inside a world it was never built for.